morning, Scotland. Good morning, social media land. I hope you're well. It is Wednesday, the 13th of November, 2024. Is Scotland doomed to repeat the mistakes of its past? This question resonates throughout our history, reminding us that disunity has too often been Scotland's greatest enemy, allowing English influence to steep into and weaken our sovereignty from within. Today, as the independence movement wrestles with internal divisions and a persistent unionist presence in Holyrood, we have to ask ourselves if we're on the verge of repeating a painful history. To understand what truly is at stake, we need to look back at two critical periods when Scotland's leaders, torn by rivalry and ambition, compromised our future. The lessons of these eras are clear. Only a united Scotland can ever stand truly independent. In the wars of independence during the late 13th and early 14th centuries, Scotland faced an overwhelming power in the form of Edward I of England. And from the depths of this crisis, William Wallace, a figure of courage and resilience, rose to lead an uprising against English rule. In 1297, he led Scots to decisive victory at the Battle of Stirling Bridge, proving that we could stand up to the might of England. But Wallace's success was short-lived because he faced not only the English army, but also divisions within Scotland. Nobles, more concerned with their own power than the nation's future, either withheld support or openly allied with the English crown. Sir John Menteith's betrayal, handing Wallace over to the English in 1305, symbolised the dangers of a divided nation and divided loyalties. And even as Robert the Bruce eventually rose as a champion for independence, he too faced oppositions from rivals like John Comyn, a split that forced Bruce into years of conflict against both England and his own people. Fast forward to the early 18th century, Scotland found itself again at a crossroads, its leaders divided and vulnerable to English influence. The failed Darien scheme left Scotland's economy in ruins, with many nobles drowning in debt. Westminster seized this opportunity, offering to cover these debts in exchange for union. The Treaty of Union in 1707 was not a decision made by the Scottish people, but rather by a group of nobles who accepted English payments in exchange for their support. This betrayal was deeply unpopular amongst ordinary Scots who had no vote in the matter, yet would be the ones who would suffer the consequences. These historical lessons aren't just echoes of a distant past, they are warnings for today. In Holyrood, we see unionist MSPs, Scots elected by Scots who serve the interests of English-centred political parties like the Tories, the Labour and the Lib Dems. These unionist Scots often work to maintain the status quo, aligning Scotland's future with Westminster's agenda. Their influence is reminiscent of those nobles who centuries ago sacrificed Scotland's autonomy for personal gain. And then there's the SNP, a party that's achieved remarkable progress in governing Scotland, proving that we can manage our own affairs. Yet as it strives to show its competence, the SNP risks becoming too comfortable within the constraints of devolution, losing sight of its once radical core. Yes, governing is important, but it mustn't come at the expense of the independence cause. If the SNP remains content to govern within the Union's limits, is it enough to deliver the vision of independence? And it's not just the SNP. The broader independence movement is fractured, with political parties and organisations each pushing for their own vision of Scotland's future and how to get there. It resembles the clan rivalries of the past, where factions vied for power rather than uniting against the common foe. This disunity is precisely what Westminster relies on to maintain control. As long as Scots remain divided politically and ideologically, any push for independence will be delayed, diluted and dismissed. Just as in the past, when leaders were swayed by English influence or personal ambition, today's divisions risk undermining the entire cause. Scotland deserves unity, not factionalism. It deserves a shared vision, not competing agendas. Ordinary Scots, the ones who bear the brunt of political divisions, deserve a movement that prioritises our nation over individual and political ambition. Only a unified, decisive push for independence can overcome the legacy of betrayal and division that has held Scotland back for centuries. So as we look to the future, we have to ask ourselves, will we break free from our past and finally unite for independence? Or will we allow disunity to shape our fate once again? The answer to this isn't in our history, it's in our willingness to learn from it. We've been doing the same thing for years, haven't we? We've been placing our reliance upon people who are weak, people who will turn round and betray us for their own pocket or their own ambition. I don't want to think that that is what the modern independence movement is all about. But I think we need to accept part of it is like that. And if we aim to move forward, we have to step sideways and embrace our brothers and sisters in arms within the movement. We need to unite as a people. It doesn't matter whether you carry a yellow flag or a blue flag, or whether you're wanting to chuck Nicola in jail with all our cronies. It doesn't matter. Let's just get independence. Let's use the tools that we've got and fight for that, because that's what's important. Tomorrow I'm going to rant. I've been wanting to rant for ages, so I'm going to apologise in advance if I offend anybody, because there's things that I need to say that people might not like, people will criticise me for, and quite frankly I don't care, because you're not my enemy. My enemy is Westminster, and sometimes good friends need to say some strong words, some harsh truths to bring about change. Until then, have a remarkable day.
I can't get no sleep.